Hello, hello, you beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Michelle. We talk all things life, love, spirituality, law of attraction, and all of that juicy goodness. In this video, I am going to share a book that I wrote. So while my dad was transitioning into hospice in October of 2021, so last fall, he was moving into hospice, and I remember going home every night being reminded of what it felt like when my daughter passed away. And I'm sorry if this is abrupt news. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I've dealt with two big losses in my life. My daughter 10 years ago from a muscle disorder when she was 6 weeks old. And then my dad, who passed away from lung cancer this around October last year. And what's so unique is in this book, I share how their passings were exactly the same. Same situation, same medicine, same hospice environment. And for a baby, that's so unique, right? Like to kind of know that it's going to happen and to be prepared for it, but also how do you handle that emotionally, mentally, physically? And a lot of people always say, you know, you're so lucky that you had that time with her. You know, some parents, you know, unfortunately have a shocking passing of their child and they didn't get to be with them and they weren't sure if they were safe. So I 100% agree with that. I believe that that was a blessing for me, and it was meant to be for me to experience that with her, because when it came time for my dad's transition, I was prepared. I was like a hero. I felt like I created this spiritual portal for him to transition. I had music playing. I was reading my favorite book to him. It was just him and I in the room when his soul decided to leave. So it's almost like I created the space for him to rise. And it was so beautiful. I even remember the song that was playing. It was an instrumental song. I remember what page I was on when I was reading it. And it was so incredibly powerful. And I realized that grief is my superpower. And that's one of my special gifts in this lifetime. And I didn't know it until I experienced it. So it's almost like you fear death when it comes time, you know, for it to happen. And I'm not saying I don't fear my death. I 100%, I fear suffering. I don't fear death. I fear suffering before you pass. And so as my dad was suffering before he passed, he struggled with breathing. He was in and out of the hospital. And I would go home every night just in shambles. Like I was skin and bones. I couldn't eat. And it was just reminding me of that time with my daughter. And I'm like, nobody knows how to deal with this. Like nobody understands, or at least I've never read books of somebody explaining, like, how do you deal with grief in this way? And I know there's a ton of grief books out there, but from my perspective, I just felt so called to start writing. So every night when my dad was in hospice, I would go home and I would write. And this is the result of it. I wrote an ebook explaining my tools and things that I used during that process with my daughter, with my dad. So in this video, I wanted to share a little bit of chapter 1, just to see if maybe it might help somebody else out there who might be going through a loved one who's struggling with an illness, or you just lost somebody abruptly, or it was a slow passing. So here is my very first chapter. I'll explain real fast. It's a really beautiful, I'm really proud of myself, how pretty this book is. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. There we go. So it's got a beautiful beach background and it's available on my website to purchase. It's just $13.13, which is my daughter's favorite number. But here are the chapters. Chapter 1, what grief looks like. Chapter 2, lose the self-judgment. Chapter 3, you make your own rules. Chapter 4, ways to move through the pain. Chapter 5, feeling good through the pain. Chapter 6, grief is the ultimate gift. And then there's a part 2 to that chapter, which is finding the magic. And then chapter 7 is grieving your grief, which is a weird stage that not many people talk about. Like once you're moving out of your grief, you kind of grieve that person that you were. Like, who am I if I'm not the girl that lost her daughter? So it's like you have to like let go of this identity. It's a great chapter. And then the final chapter is fly, butterfly, fly. So I was so inspired and empowered to write this because I was thinking of other people going through what I was going through, and they didn't have the tools. They didn't have the mindset. They didn't have the perspective. They didn't have the healing modalities. So I'm just going to read a little bit of chapter 1 to see if this helps anybody out there. And if you are feeling called, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and comment below and let me know if you enjoyed listening to me read, or if you'd rather just read it on your own, because I will continue to do more chapters. I don't mind reading the whole book. It's my service to the world. I don't need money. Obviously, it's a beautiful, energetic exchange if you'd like to purchase it from me, but I feel called to share it because there's so much happening in our world right now, and I think people need the tools on how to grieve. So here we go. Drop your shoulders, take a deep breath, and just settle in. Let me calm down my heart from talking so fast. Okay. What grief looks like. We all have this idea of what grief is and what it looks like. We grow up thinking someone is damaged or weak due to the loss of a loved one. We then adopt this label. Most of the time, it's what we absorb from the media, music, lyrics, movies, family stories, etc. Some say it feels like we are in a dark cloud for years. Others say it can feel like we are walking around carrying cinder blocks. That was me. I always said that. We never truly know what it looks like or feels like until we experience it. This first chapter is essentially letting you know that there is no look. Let's let go of all expectations, no labels. Let's lean in and allow it all to be here in whatever way it wants to. This will make the path a heck of a lot easier for you. Your grief is yours. It will take its own unique shape with time. What that shape will look like depends on the special bond you shared with whom you're grieving. Let me pause and say, I am so sorry you're here reading this ebook, but I believe your loved one has led you here. They are always guiding you and taking care of you. You are not alone. Let's pause and thank them. I do that often. I wish I could ease your heart and mind by telling you that it gets easier, but it doesn't. The pain just gets tolerable once we've adapted to our new normal. I can only share and offer these messages from my personal experience with loss. My hope is that it will help you better understand your unique grief journey. Living through our grief becomes a moment-to-moment experience. Knowing this will lighten the load, but it won't make it hurt less. It will still be painful for a while, but in the end, the pain is good. I know you might not want to hear that, but I trust that you will receive it when you are ready. There is no rush to get there just yet. Take it day by day and keep breathing. The more we break open our hearts, the more love we can allow in, and the more we can find our way back to our happiness. Like I said before, grief is absolutely an experience that surfaces moment to moment. Sometimes it's there every minute of the day. Sometimes it's non-existent. Welcome to the great unknown. I hope that doesn't scare you, because the unknown is actually one of the greatest gifts we can experience. It immediately places us in the present moment. It forces us to become aware of what is manifesting in our bodies. Due to this experience, we learn how to tune in and connect back to what our body is telling us. What a gift. Learning how to use our bodies as beacons will transform our experience, especially on a grief journey. We will be able to identify where the pain is hiding and release it sooner. This can be really empowering. Life becomes better when we feel as though we can be okay in the unknown. Fear begins to dissipate because our thoughts are no longer in the past or in the future. We aren't worried about who will pass away next or who will get sick. We have directed our focus on what's in front of us. We understand that life is temporary, and because of this understanding, we start to appreciate everything. This leads us to our gratitude. When we are present and in our gratitude, we are able to catch our feelings surfacing. Our emotions become wonderful beacons. They guide us. They teach us what our body is needing. Our bodies are intelligent and must be utilized in this way. They know what's best for us. Once the awareness is there, we can slowly take action to release the pain. This can be done through crying, moving, drawing, talking, yelling, cleaning, singing, journaling, praying. And I'd like to add dancing there. I should have added that. I encourage you to explore all of these options. See which one feels good in your heart. You might find that different ones work on different days. That is perfect. It's a dance. You don't always know what song you'll be dancing to. Keep a list around as a reminder so you can accommodate your needs. I like to believe each time we are taking action to release the pain, we are dropping off a cinder block and we never have to pick it up again. This feels like freedom. Grief is one of the trickiest emotions because of its unpredictability. Through my grief journey, I slowly learned how to embrace each unexpected trigger when it arrived. I learned how to work with the unpredictability. I had the tools. I could drop off a heavy cinder block whenever I needed to. This changed my life. I no longer felt out of control. I released my resistance to my pain and allowed it to be there. This also taught me how to live with a more mindful heart. It was a soft reminder to always be present. I found myself pausing as often as I could to ask myself the following questions. How do I feel right now? If I don't feel good, what can I do to soothe and nurture myself? How can I love myself more? What other things are happening that I need to pay attention to? These questions brought me closer to me. I found myself nurturing and deepening my connection to my body. Looking back, this was a tool that transformed my life and has been a constant ever since. This was my way out of my grief because at any given moment, I could shift my energy in a healthy way. I found out exactly what I needed to do to survive in each hard moment. My grief was no longer the boss of me. It became my guide, my teacher, my friend. It was my connection to me and my loved one. I began embracing it. I allowed it to be there. I allowed the pain to cut deep into my heart. It was showing me my capacity. Sorry, guys. It was showing me my capacity to love another human being. Without loss, we cannot appreciate what we do have and the love we've been so blessed to experience. Cutting deep over here. This began my awakening journey. I started to live my life slowly, but more awake and aware. I had more gratitude. I started to choose me. I started to love me. I found compassion for myself and what my grief looked like. I protected it. I made it mine. If anyone commented on how I was living my life, I immediately went into mama bear mode and shut it down. Those comments sounded like, Michelle, you have to start getting out more. You need to move on. You can't keep talking about her. You have a bright future, but you're not seeing it. They did not understand my pain, and I was not interested in hearing their advice or trying to explain my feelings. My journey had begun, my journey within, my survival. I felt alone. I felt like I had to figure it out on my own. This was my own experience. I'm not recommending you do it alone. Support groups are fabulous. I am only sharing how I was guided. It just felt right to be alone. I had wonderful family and friends who were always willing to listen, but I just wanted to be by myself. I also found that I was guided to the right people at the right time. People who also experienced the loss of a child in the most unique places, like a pillow aisle at Target. It was all perfect. I was always being brought the warm conversations I needed to move along my healing journey. For some reason, I was guided to grieve alone majority of the time. I am not sure if it was the hard way or not. Is there an easy way through grief? I don't know. All I know is that I'm very happy now, and that is all that matters. I made it, and so can you. Before we move into the other chapters, I feel called to briefly share my own experience with grief. My hope is that your heart can maybe feel a sense of comfort knowing that you're not alone and that I have gone through something similar. I experienced two major losses in my life up until now, my daughter and my dad. Both were devastating, but in two very different ways. My dad was my rock after the loss of my daughter. He was a major player in my healing process. He just recently passed, so I'm currently grieving as I type this. He actually inspired me to create this. Here is a glimpse into my grief. All right, I'm going to pause there. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if you enjoyed that. Sorry, I got a little emotional. Obviously, it's hitting the heartstrings for me because it's my work, and I'm hoping that maybe this will draw out any emotion that you've been holding on to. The more you cry, the more you're dropping off those cinder blocks, lovies. So allow the healing to begin. Allow my words to sink in. You are not alone. Your grief is yours, and you get to do what you want with it. You get to release it when you want to release it. You get to sit with it when it shows up. Try not to run from it. And sometimes when we find ourselves overeating or needing another cup of caffeine or not finding something to do and we're very antsy, a lot of times that's your grief bubbling up and you're feeling it. You're feeling that anxiousness, but you don't know what it is. This happened to me many times, and I would sit on the couch and I'd see myself going to the kitchen cabinet, wanting to go to Starbucks. And I'd be like, wait, Michelle, you know this routine. You don't want food. You don't want coffee. You don't want to work out. You need to sit on the couch, breathe for about 5 minutes. By like the third minute, I would be sobbing and being like, okay, it's here. Let me just sit with this. A lot of times I cry in the mirror, and you just let it come through you. And once the tears are done, they'll come to an end. Then you can get up and say, okay, what do I want to do right now? How do I want to release this more? Maybe go for a workout, maybe dance. And that's how you move with your grief. Okay. Don't push it away. It's a beautiful thing. Like I said in the book, when we break our hearts open, we're allowing more love in. So it's just proof that you're able to love this kind of big love. You only know it until you lose it. And it's never really lost. It's in us. My dad and my daughter are in me, and I am in them. And they jumped into my body today and said, share this. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sending you so much love if you're grieving the loss of somebody 10 years ago, 20 years ago, today. You are loved and you are safe, and you got this. Okay. You're not alone. Sending you so much love. Peace out.